be sure to rank. Thanks for joining me today at the StylezStudio. I'm going to be doing a wash and go on my gorgeous model here. Now on the Mizani texture scale, we work with textures 1 through 8, 1 being naturally straight, 8 being the tightest coil. I'd say my model falls somewhere between texture type 6 and 7. And actually in the very back, she's probably around a texture type 5. And so you'll see that on multiple clients. You'll see that a lot of clients have multiple textures on one head. And so I'm gonna show you a couple of tricks to identify those and use the specific products just for those areas. Let's get started. Here's a tip with working with textured hair. Always do a porosity test. This will help you determine what type of product to use. My model has medium to low porosity, so I don't need to put a ton of moisture in her hair because it would only weigh her hair down. Because she has a tighter texture, it does have a lot of shrinkage, so I want to make sure that I'm putting in hold to get elongation. So I just finished sectioning my model. I'm gonna start my product application, but I always start with the primer, and what I'm gonna use first is the Mizani 25 Miracle Cream. As I mentioned earlier, she has a couple of different texture types, and in the very back, it's about 2 to 3 texture types looser than the rest of her hair. So I wanna make sure that I encourage those curls, and as a result, I'm gonna use the styling foam. So here's a tip when detangling textured hair. So if you saw, when I applied the 25 Miracle Cream, I started applying it from the tips and working my way through the root area. The reason why I start at the ends is because that's where it's the driest. And that's where also I want to start my detangling. So when using the paddle brush or a Denman brush, always start detangling from the ends and then work your way up. If you start from the top, all you're going to do is create larger knots through the ends. So as I mentioned earlier, the back of her head is a looser texture than it is at top. You can see how large these ringlets are versus how tight these ringlets are. So my goal is to bridge the gap. I want to make the looser curls a bit tighter and the tighter curls a bit looser. So for the looser curls, I'm going to use the styling foam, and for the tighter curls, I'm going to use the twist and coil jelly. The technique that I just showed you was a variation of a finger coil. The reason why I did a finger coil in this back section is because I wanted to isolate the curls. The more defined and isolated the curls are before you dry them, the tighter and bouncier and springier they will be. And again, remember, my goal is to make these curls a little tighter. So I did a finger coil to make them bouncier, which will make them tighter. recap, I just finished the back half of my model's hair. As I mentioned before, the bottom section is a lot looser in texture, so I used the styling foam, and then I did a variation of a finger coil just to pop those curls and make them a bit bouncier, which will make them a little tighter. And on top, my goal was to elongate. So after using the 25 Miracle Cream, I used the Twist and Coil Jelly, which has moisture but more hold, so it leads with hold, and that will keep her curls longer. So I just finished the full product application on my model, and we're gonna start drying, but I'm not gonna go right in with the diffuser. Even though we want volume, we also want elongation. So what I'm gonna do actually is put her under a heat source. Now, we're here at the StylezStudio, so the sun is gonna be our heat source for today, but you can use a heat lamp, you can use a hooded dryer, or you can just hover a diffuser over your client's head. So we're gonna do a heat source for about 5 to 10 minutes to let that gel set in so we can start drying as elongated as possible. And then we're gonna come back, add the diffuser, and create all the volume. I just grabbed my model from Naturally Air Drying. We are at the StylezStudio in Miami, so she did use sun. If you're in the salon, you can use any heat source, a color processor or a hood dryer, or you could just hover a diffuser over that client's head. So at this point, she's probably about 40–50% dry, which is great because I really wanted that gel to set so we can dry with the longest length possible. So now I'm gonna go in and start diffusing. Here's a tip when diffusing textured hair. I always recommend using a dryer that comes with its own diffuser. I know that there are universal diffusers out there, and those are great and they fit all blow dryers, but they blow too much wind, and wind equals frizz. So I highly recommend getting a dryer that comes with its own specially made diffuser. Now that I've got my model's hair about 90% dry, I want to start a stretching process. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently stretch her hair from the mid shaft, and I'm going to put light heat directly at her root just to give a little stretch, which helps with elongation. So now I'm loosening up her texture, and to get even more volume, I'm going to start to disrupt a little bit of the curl from root to mid shaft, and I'm going to use that with a wide tooth comb. So to finish out any textured style, I always use the 25 Miracle Nourishing Oil. So my gorgeous model is 100% dry. Her curls are popping, her hair looks fabulous, but we gave her a Mazzani haircut earlier and I want it bigger. Don't you want to see it bigger? We're gonna go bigger, and I'm gonna use my handy dandy pick to go in and disrupt more of that texture and then blow it around just to get some more volume. Stay tuned. All right, so we're bigger and her hair looks amazing. But for me, it's still not big enough. So we started off with what I call day 1 hair. Now we're at day 2 hair. I want to give her day 3 hair, which is typically my favorite. And I'm going to give her day 3 hair using the Lived In Texture Spray. Just finished our wash and go on our texture type 7. I just want to recap what we did. So if you remember, at the very back of her hair, she had texture type like 4 or 5. So I had to use the Mazzani styling mousse just to get that a little tighter. Everywhere else, she's about a texture type 7. So I used the twist and coil jelly to help elongate. We allowed her to air dry for 10 minutes and then I came in and diffused. So I had to play a little bit more and we got to day 4, even though it's day 1. What does day 1 mean? Check out my channel and you'll learn all you can about texture. Thanks so much for joining me here on Styles.